don't get up to that either, but if I do,
Used to be the poles, kitchen, poles. Cabinets. And some of the.
Don't have one of mine up.
Some of the. Some of the machines that sit on the side.
How are you doing?
Good.
Belts, belt
Was the
rippers.
last week of school tour great going?
Yeah. All right.
Yeah. You can have a seat, Jack. You can have, oh,
Yeah.
you're gonna stand, you're gonna stand for that?
It's a lecture in one of my government classes.
Evening, George. How are you today? Excellent.
Don't forget to sign in, Justin.
Not that I know. So what? I haven't heard
Went
of
to the
it.
annual tour of Holland on Monday, he said it was going to be.
Oh, yeah.
Going to do a process.
We were waiting for you. How you do? Yeah, I do. Good. Well, I think it's 4:01. Maybe call this to order. I'd like to call this meeting to order. If you all please stand and we'll recite the pledge of allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
When you're gonna make sure your microphone's on, I don't think it says.
Yeah.
The green light.
Green light's on.
There you go. Now it's on. It's a bright green light.
Bright
It is a
green.
bright
Can you hear me now? Okay. Thank you all for coming. We have quite an agenda tonight, so we'll get started. First thing on the agenda is second thing on the agenda is the approval of the minutes. You should have all received a copy of the minutes from the last meeting in your packet. Were there any additions, corrections, adjustments, deletions, so forth?
Did you see anything, Jack?
No.
Did you see?
Nope.
I'll move that we approve the minutes.
Mr. George moves second, and Rick seconds. Any further discussion? Hearing none, call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Minutes are approved. Now, moving on to the meat, is the approval of the claims, and we have quite a few.
That we do.
Mr. Jeremy, could you lead us through that?
The first claim on your agenda is $600,000, which is our contribution towards the sewage bond for the original sewer plant. And that will continue with once the updated new sewer plant's online, we'll continue our contribution of that $600,000 towards the expansion of the sewer plant. But every year, that comes out of Northern TIF. Fenton Brown, $47,469.32 is a portion of our contribution to the North Point Drive project. There was 3 different accounts that were paying for this. We were paying for a portion of it, the street department, and then we had NDOT funding for another portion of it.
Okay, now, the claim we're signing,
On the back, it's split out.
is $164,496.28.
Yes, and of that $164,000, we're paying $47,469.32. If you look at the, I don't know if you have the back of the claim, but the back of the claim has it broken out. She may not have scanned the back of the claim in, but I have it broken down on the memo too, yeah.
Yeah, okay. I just want to be
Yep. Yep, nope, understand.
Just because I don't do the backs and the fronts, because then you guys end up with a lot of blank pages.
Yeah, it's, it's,
Sure.
Okay.
it just, on these ones that are joined.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're hard to
Well, and
understand.
Absolutely right. Yep.
and we have a few of those. Huntington Bank, and there are actually a number of Huntington Banks on here, so rather than going through all of them, I'll just give a quick explanation. So every year, we have, I think, 4 bonds that are maintained by Huntington Bank. And so these administration fees are once a year, I believe, or quarterly. We received a bill from them for one of the bonds, which they hadn't billed us for 5 years, so, yeah. So that's why you see all of these Huntington Banks on here, because it's 5 years' worth of maintenance fees that they didn't bill us, that they're requesting us to pay. Lynn did send an email back to them complaining more or less, but we didn't get any correspondence back, so it is my suggestion that we pay those bills that they've submitted to us.
One question on that, one of those was $400, all the rest were $250.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a reason why one would be so more than the other? I mean, it's a minor thing, but
I think it was
The auditor
the
needed to-
original, it was part of the original bond issue. That's why it's $400. So from the
So
time
from
they
it
issued
goes
the
back.
bond all the way back, they'd never billed us.
okay.
And somewhere along the lines, they must have been doing an audit and realized they hadn't billed us. And they sent the bill, and it was like, whatever, $1,200 or something that they wanted us to pay. So you'll see Huntington's on here quite a few, and that's what those are for. So I'm going to skip them outside of what I just explained. A&Z Engineering, 2,157.50 is for County Road 150 intersection improvements. G&G, 37,618.86 is for the installation of the lift station for the technology park. 83,000 Huntington Bank is bond payment that will be due in January. So rather than we like to keep ahead of those bond issuance so that we don't, it's due like on the 15th. So we'll have it prepared to be paid out so that we're not late on it. Wessler Engineering, 2,532.66 is for the Airport Industrial Park ongoing project. Wessler Engineering, $250 is for the engineering for Technology Park Lift Station. Troyer Group, $280 is for 300 North, Husky Trail, North Point Drive, and Parker Street traffic study that we're in the process of completing. Baker Tilly, $3,650 is for their services for the resolutions you're going to approve today, and also the Winona interurban TIF expansion. A&Z, $1,589.26, 150 West project, intersection project. Barnes and Thornburg, $10,206.11 is also for the work on the resolutions for the residential TIFs as well as the Winona interurban TIF expansion. Troyer Group 1,105. I believe that is for North Point Drive. Troyer Group 847.50 is also for North Point Drive. And then the Huntington Banks are the bond issuance.
Good. Thank you.
Is there any questions on any of those claims?
Anybody have any questions? Hearing none, I'll call for it.
I'm
good?
Okay, motion? Rick
We
has?
approve.
Rick makes a motion to approve.
Second.
Jeff makes a motion, seconds that motion. Any further discussion? Hearing none, call for the vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Claims are approved as presented. Thank you. Okay, Next on the agenda, Resolution 2019-12-01.
I had to move backwards when I voted on board back, so I had to
Oh,
flip
sorry.
them around.
Well,
01 is north, 02 is south.
Okay.
I did not realize that when I voted it.
So this is a public hearing for both of these resolutions. This is the final resolution, which will lead to the adoption of two residential TIF districts, the north and the south. So they've been through your designating resolution in the beginning, to the Plan Commission, City Council, and the school board, and come back before you for your final approval, which will lead to the creation of those two TIF districts. And like I said, this is a public hearing, so we'll take them one at a time. You'll open up the public hearing, but what you have before you is the declaratory resolution. In that, you have the legal descriptions.
Which is which? 01?
01 is north.
Sorry,
Okay, that's right.
I numbered it wrong.
So you have the legal description of the TIF district, the economic development plan, and I've also included in your packet the Baker and Tilly report on the impact. So you also have the impact report, and this corresponds to both the north and the south TIF districts.
Can you briefly go through the impact study? It seems to me like that would be we want to know that before we make the final approval. There's no, in other words, is there anything derogatory?
No, and if you look, I want to preface that a little bit because they did also provide an impact to the school. As when I was working with the school on this project, they did provide a specific impact to the school, but this impact is based off the but for, without, you have nothing. So when you see this, what it's basically telling you is, if anything, there will be an increase in the taxable tax rates, or the taxable amount of money available to those districts if we were to develop houses in this area. Because in theory, although we would be capturing the increment from these houses, that's going to create and lead to other developments other places that is not captured by this TIF. So if you look at the scenario one,
So it has to be over and above the current
yeah,
property tax rates for these properties.
and it is in his analysis, and I can find it for you. It says, based on current assessed information, this is scenario 2, assumes the allocation area is established. It says scenario 2 also depicts the impact of overlapping taxing units if the non-captured housing development occurs as expected, and assumes that the estimated $9.7 million of incremental assessed value from the non-captured housing development is included in the tax base of all overlapping taxing units. Based on current assessment information, the estimated $9.7 million of additional assessed value from the non-captured housing development will result in an estimated tax rate decrease of 0.0180 in tax rates of the overlapping units in the Warsaw-Wayne Township taxing district, as well as an increase of $11,182 in the tax levies for the overlapping units. Some taxing units could potentially see a reduction in the loss of revenue from the circuit breaker tax credits. So that's the scenario that they're arguing, which is assumes the allocation areas are established. And then you can read scenario 3, assumes the allocation area is not established. Based on current assessed information, the estimated $29.3 million of additional assessed value from the baseline housing development would result in an estimated tax rate decrease of 0.0494 in tax rates of the overall units in Warsaw-Wayne Township taxing districts, as well as an increase of $33,547 in taxes levies for the overlapping units. So that's the difference. So either way, you end up with a decrease in the tax rate and an increase in the available weight or levies. that makes sense.
And what all entities have approved this prior to us? I mean,
So
we
the
approved
city
it.
council, plan commission, and school board. Like I said, Umball did a specific impact statement for the school board to give them an idea what that impact would be. And it assumed that we would accomplish what we were expecting to, which is to build 60 homes per, additional amount of homes per year over a 10-year period. And I think the loss to them would be about $10,000 in tax increment they could have captured at the end of the 10 years.
But assuming there's some additional students,
Assuming that,
they would get,
yeah, so the same, we're basing it off the study that they provided, which would assume that for every 100 homes, I believe it was 50 students aged would be in the school, could potentially be in the school system. And that study would be somewhere around 600 homes that would be built. So if you do the math, and there's no guarantee, like I said, this is just
projection.
it's projections, and the projection is for every 100 homes, it's 50 students. So if you have 600 homes built, that's potentially 300 students. And I think you get around $5,800 per student. So now they're different pockets of money. One, the money they get from the state goes towards operating the educational portion, which is your teachers and salaries, whereas taxes go towards the operation of the facilities and so forth. One of the things we did in talking to them, wanting to be partners in the economic development plan, it does allow for us to participate in projects where we legally can within those school districts, if we were to achieve our goals and have funds on hand to help address any issues within those school districts. But obviously, from our standpoint, we want to target growth in those areas. We want to target growth in the Eisenhower specifically, and we know there's growth occurring in the northern residential TIF district area. So by being able to expand and create more housing opportunities in those districts, we will impact the school both positively and negatively. Positively being we're putting more students in the school, but negatively in that there's costs associated with those students and providing them the facilities they need. So in both of these economic development plans, it allows for us to work with the school and participate in future projects where needed.
Any questions amongst our group before we open it?
I've got one more question.
Sure.
Mhm.
As far as what we saw earlier, other than the list of properties,
Mhm.
is there any change?
No, so the area stays the same. We didn't change the area.
You know, I'm talking about this document,
The resolution.
the resolution. This is the document we looked at.
It's the
Yes.
same document that all the other groups voted on and approved.
It is, except for that language that I was talking, I'll read it to you. So what is different is I've included in the economic development plan, it says other projects that may be included within the area as determined by the Redevelopment Commission includes expansion of public education facilities located within the area, the extension of water facilities, water owned by Indian American Water throughout the area, acquisition of right-of-way as needed to complete roads projects, and the acquisition of properties as necessary to facilitate future residential development within the area, all as may be permitted by the Act. That last section was added in talking to our legal counsel, just wanting to us to be clear that we're going to do what's allowed per the Act.
And that's all allowed under a TIF district anyhow, correct?
It is, and I don't want to get too down in the weeds. I'll just
Okay.
tell you that there are ways we can help the school district, but we cannot go out and build a school.
Right, right.
But much like other projects and things we do, there are ways for us to help the school district, and we will pursue those means when needed to do so.
In forms of infrastructure.
It could be infrastructure, it could be economic development related, and what I mean by that is I believe there are ways that we can help in training, training education for different types of manufacturing. There's ways for us to facilitate. There's some equipment things I think we can do. We just want to be, that section is in there to make sure we're saying we will do what we can within the confines of the act. That may allow us to do infrastructure improvements. It could allow us to do equipment type things that would relate to workforce training. It could allow us to do educational type things that relate to workforce training. Those types of things we can participate in.
And this north and south resolutions are identical except for the descriptions of the properties,
That's correct. The different district, they're two different districts, yep.
yeah.
Yep.
The maps.
But the principles are the same.
Yes. Okay, any further discussion, questions for Jeremy on this, before I open it up to public? Hearing none. We'll open this segment up for public discussion. If anybody wants to come to the microphone and make a comment, you're welcome to do so. Chair recognizes David.
Just wanted to say thank you for the process. Between Jeremy and the mayor, they spent quite a bit of time with our school board going through it and adding that piece in because one of our major concerns was what will happen with overcrowding, especially on the northern TIF district, if that was to happen around there. So again, thank you for adding that language. We feel very confident in that language, and it's much appreciated.
Okay. Thank you. Anything else?
I'll just echo the sentiments that just commend you for
Would
taking
you state your
time.
name, please?
Heather Reichenbach, I'm board president of
Thank
Warsaw Community Schools.
Thank you.
Just commend Jeremy and the mayor and all of you for taking time to familiarize and making board comfortable with this process. And we're in the same business, and that's growing communities. And I really feel like this is
Absolutely.
next steps for moving forward. And I really appreciate, and we all really appreciate the time invested in making our future the best for Warsaw. Thank you.
Yeah, we'd like everybody to understand we're all on the same team.
Right, exactly.
Well, and I think from our standpoint, I don't think there's a lot of communities. There may be 2 or 3 other communities that have kind of gone through this process, so we're one of the first communities to initiate the process. I was actually talking to a principal of a school in Rushville. I know that they were in the process of doing the same thing, so they were creating TIF districts and had their meetings with the school boards, and we're all on the same page. So not a lot of examples around the state right now, so we're kind of the first through the wall. It took a little while for everyone to get on the same page in terms of how it's going to work, but I feel confident now that we have a good plan moving forward. And
Yeah, this is truly brand new legislation, and we're taking advantage of it right as soon as we possibly can for the betterment of the community, the schools, everybody.
Yep. And we all know that we have, and it's not just us, it's across the United States, there's a housing shortage in terms of what's being built compared to pre-recession. It hasn't come back, and there's just hundreds of thousands of units on a yearly basis that aren't being built to meet the demand, and there's only a few ways to go about creating that change, and this is one we're hoping to utilize to create that change and get more houses.
Are there any other comments? Hearing none, I'll close the public section of this. And any further discussion amongst our commission? Anybody have any additional questions? If not, entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve Resolution 2019-12-01.
Can we do it again?
Is that right?
Yeah.
Yes.
I would do them separately.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve Resolution 2019-1201, which is the North District, correct?
Yep.
Any further discussion? None, I'll call for the vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. That resolution is approved. And now we'll open it up for Resolution 2019.
I would open the public hearing again, even though
Oh, we need to do one for each?
I would do one for each.
Yes.
Was not aware of that. Okay. We will open it for public discussion for Resolution 2019-12-02, the Southern District. Residential district.
Yep.
Nobody wants to comment? Very good. Okay, we'll close the public session. Oh, that was the quietest public session we, anyhow.
I'd make a motion that we approve Resolution 2019-12-02.
Okay.
Second.
We have a motion from Rick and seconded by Jeff to approve 2019-12-02. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. That resolution is approved. Okay? And so we'll move on to the next thing on the agenda, a memo of understanding for HPG Network.
Yeah, so you have a MOU with HPG Network. They are the ones that are doing the housing study for Kosciuszko County and the city of Warsaw, as we try to create a plan, an action plan to address our housing issues. This agreement, and I want to clarify a little bit, it says there's a max make available $50,000 in pre-development funds, but all of that depends on us pursuing and getting a project that would be built at the end. So this is kind of a not to exceed 50,000. So assuming we move forward and we're successful in generating and creating the next step of this project, we would be setting aside potentially $50,000 in pre-development funds for that project. But there's a lot of steps to get to before we would have a project and be spending money on development of that project. So this letter of agreement basically just says we're going to start consulting, working together to put together the project scope, and the compensation would be based on that project scope, the RFQs of qualified developers being submitted, and the creation of development plans. At such time, we would select a qualified developer.
And just to clarify, this thing stays in effect through the completion of the project or 12 months, whichever comes first.
That's
So
correct.
we do have a ending date if need be. Okay. Any questions? I would assume we have to approve that.
Yeah, so you'd be approving this. That would start the process for us to start developing ideas for potential projects. Would also start the process for us maybe looking at acquisition of or how we would acquire such property for a project, and then RFQs that would be submitted on behalf of developing such project.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
I move to accept the memorandum of understanding.
Jeff moves
Second.
approve it as presented, and Mr. Clemens seconds that. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. That memo of understanding is approved as presented.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to the Buffalo Street mixed-use appraisal agreement.
So we have two appraisals, agreements for appraisals. Both of them are concerning the Buffalo Street mixed-use property. As part of the next step in developing that mixed-use property, we need to appraise the property so we can dispose to the developer that will build the mixed-use building. So these are two agreements for appraisals, one with Vern Mitchell and the other one with Griffin Real Estate Service, which you should be familiar with because we use them a lot for our economic development projects. So you can see, I think Vern Mitchell's was around 7,000, and then Griffin was 7,100.
So they are very close,
Yes.
very similar.
There's three appraisals, so they'd be appraising the original Waterworks building, portion of Canal Street, the maintenance building that the street or Parks Department currently occupy, and then there's a small tract of land that's in between those two that would be disposed. It'll be part of the redevelopment project, but so there's basically a few parcels that they are appraising, all of which we would be able to dispose towards the project.
Any questions about that?
So are we approving both or one?
Approving both, because I need two appraisals before we can dispose.
That's what I thought.
Yep.
Okay. I move we approve.
Both?
Yes.
Thank you.
Second.
We have a motion from Rick to approve both appraisals as presented. Mr. Clemens seconds that. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Those appraisals are approved as presented. How about Fort Wayne Street appraisals?
So we're going to remove this from the agenda, or table it. We'll just table it, since I did not get the second appraisal. I was supposed to get the second appraisal today, and it did not come in. I've been waiting all day for it, but in order for us to purchase property, once again, we need two appraisals. We can offer the average of the two appraisals. We have one appraisal. The other one was supposed to be submitted today. It did not get submitted. We do have a purchase agreement to purchase the property, and this is the third property of three properties at the corner of Fort Wayne and Indiana. We own two of them currently. We had purchased those a few years back with the intent of potentially moving the Parks Department offices to that location. We are in the process of purchasing that third property that would be available for right now, maybe the parks maintenance building, to relocate that as part of the Buffalo Street project.
Since we have that on the agenda, why don't I call for a motion?
Yeah, I move to table. I move to table item 5.
Jeff moves to table number, item number 5,
I'll second that.
and Mr. Clemens seconds that. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Will be tabled until you have this next, second appraisal. that
I'm
you-
assuming we'll have it before the next board meeting. We'll get those, and we'll get the purchase agreement and proceed with purchasing.
Okay.
Okay, clarification.
Mm-hmm.
The motion was, repeat it.
To table.
Table item number 5, the Fort Wayne Street appraisals purchase agreement, to approve those.
So the action you were going to take was to approve the purchase agreement. I needed to have the two appraisals in order for you to do that. I only have one. So what I was just putting on there, you would have had the two appraisals and the purchase agreement, but because I did not get the two appraisals, I only had the one. You don't have the two appraisals.
So technically, we cannot approve the purchase agreement without two appraisals
That's
anyhow,
correct,
so
yeah.
we're kind of stymied with that.
Yeah, I understand that, but you mentioned, did you mention item 5?
5, the new business, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
On the agenda there.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not numbered. I
On
apologize.
yours, it's not numbered, which could make it confusing, yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that we didn't table the whole
Section
section 5.
No,
Number 5.
not
And we've
on new
already
business,
approved
right.
most of it.
That's the section on new business, good. Keeping an eye on us, good.
Okay, we'll move on to change order number 3 for the Airport Industrial Park sanitary system.
Yeah, so you have before you change order number 3 in the amount of $76,684. The original contract price was $6,090,000. We've had to this point 2 change orders totaling $135,318. The first change order was for some road improvements to Bell Drive, for a section of Bell Drive to the east of Boeing. That was in really bad shape. We knew going in we were going to have to do something, but we wanted to wait until the contractor was able to get out on site to see how much of that something we needed to do. So that was the first change order. The second change order was for some additional pipe work. There was another lateral that had to be added that was missed, and then we were filling in gaps to the asphalt. So those sections of road where the pipe ended, and there may have been a couple 100 feet in between where it wasn't being paved, we've decided to go ahead and overlay with 2 inches of asphalt at the same time, so we didn't have a road section that was new, then old, and new, then old. So there was some continuity to the long-term maintenance out there. We're going to go ahead and fill in those sections that were not necessarily in the original contract. And that's where the resulting change order of that $76,000, the bulk of those, I think like 9,000 of it was for the additional lateral that was missed, and then the remainder was for that additional asphalt to fill in those segments.
For a total of 76,684, right?
Yes, and so initially, when we did this project, we bonded for 4.8 million roughly was the bond. We had set aside 1.2 million in cash, and for the project as a total, we set aside around $2 million, not knowing what cost overruns we might have. We've been, knock on wood, pretty good so far in terms of what we've run into. We'll probably have some additional cost and some soil issues we've had throughout, but it hasn't been anything too extravagant. So we're doing pretty good. It made sense to add this asphalt work on since they're out there doing the work now. It also helps so that we don't have any, initially they were going to transition down, so at those sections where we're putting 2 inches over, there would have been a wedge down to nothing. So we can remove those sections. So instead of wedging down and then coming back up and wedging back up, it'll just be 2 inches across. Yeah. But we didn't know, I mean, it's a lot of pipe, 18,000 feet of pipe. We're about 50% through the project now. So going into it, we were being somewhat conservative, not knowing how many issues we were going to run into, what types of soil we were going to get into. But now that about 50% of the pipe's in the ground, we've got a pretty good understanding where we're at. So it made sense at this point to add that into the project. If we would have had a lot of problems going on, a lot of additional costs, and we may be having a different conversation. But so far, we've been pretty lucky in terms of we've got about 9,000 some feet of pipe in the ground. We haven't had a whole lot of hiccups. So.
Okay. Any questions, discussion?
I'll move to approve the change order.
Mr. Clemens makes a motion to approve the change order number 3, Industrial Park Sanitary.
Second.
Rick seconds that motion. Further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to the next item. Oh, by the way, as a clarification on the board packet, number 5 is listed on here, just not printed, didn't come out on your printout, but it does show. So we're leaving. Site assessment.
Yeah, so
Site access group.
yeah, so I submitted today the site access agreement for the former JPJ Food Mart, so that the address of that is 443 North Detroit Street. The commission purchased this property a while back. So this access agreement is so that the IDEM and their consultant can access the site for the preliminary stages of our brownfield assessment grant. So we received, Warsaw's part of a coalition that received a $600,000 grant to assess some of our brownfields in the community. So this is one of the sites that was identified as a priority site that would be part of that grant. So as the owner of the site, you would need to grant them permission to access it and so they can do the study.
Is this the old gas station?
Yes.
Former gas station.
Yeah, so this is the gas station we bought earlier this year with the intent of demoing the gas station, removing the tanks. Justin and Maycog have been working on a larger EPA grant, and there are some potentials for state grants to remove what they call orphan petroleum sites. Since this site was abandoned prior, hadn't been banned, but had basically been shut down, not operating for almost a year when we acquired it. It had been on and off, open, closed. From a economic standpoint, it wasn't thriving, it wasn't successful, whether it was the location or what have you. We acquired it based on its proximity to our central park with the intent of tearing it down and redeveloping that area. So we're pursuing options for some potential grant funding, whether it be through the EPA or eventually through the Indiana Brownsfield to clean up that site. And this is just kind of a first step in that process, giving them access to the site to see what the next steps are.
I move to approve the agreement.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the agreement for the access to 443 North Detroit Street.
I'll second that.
Mr. Clemens seconds that motion. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. It is approved.
All right, thank you.
And next step will be, thank you. Next step will be to get some estimates for demolition of that building.
Yes, need to do that. Talked to the mayor this end of last week about that. I want to make sure we're not stepping on any toes with the EPA and Maycog and the Indiana Brownsfield, but we'll pursue that when we can.
Yeah, the hope is that they'll have somebody out looking at the site as early as January, but we have to make sure we meet their timelines because they do have pretty strict guidelines as far as what you've done to the site and when they'll still fund the redevelopment of it. So we definitely don't want to get it too far ahead of the curve and kind of mess ourselves up for future funding options. So
proceed with caution.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, we don't want to jeopardize any potential grants that we could get. So we'll work within their confines. I know Joe's eager to get it torn down, and we're pursuing that path, but we want to make sure if there's money to be had to save our citizens, taxpayers some dollars, we're gonna try to do it.
If it's available, we should go after it.
Yep.
We appreciate that. We appreciate your efforts in pursuing those monies. Okay? Anything else to come before this illustrious committee?
300 North should be, I think they're planning on opening it this Friday. I haven't heard otherwise. They did not get the top coat down. We'll do that in the spring, and I'm not sure they're going to get I know they won't get the side path put in this year, but the road will be opened back up, and then the remaining work will be done in the spring.
Okay. Looks like there's some dirt work around the outside to be leveled and so forth, but other than that, the road should be operational.
Yeah, they said that the light bases would be installed, but I haven't seen them installed yet. So whether or not they get to that this year or not, but the road will be opened back up for the winter though.
Very good. Thank you for that. Anything else come before this group? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you for,
Thank you both for showing
Yeah,
up.
thank you.
yeah, thanks for your comments.
It means a lot to people. Positive feedback.
Thank you.